Welcome to Study Hall Art Explored. And today we're going to be looking at a painting that I'm pretty sure most of y'all have seen at some point and probably even thought about a few times. It's one of those kind of brain-tickling pieces. And that is, of course, Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory.
Yeah, that's the one.
I mean, melting clocks and weird landscapes that feel strangely familiar. What is going on in that guy's head?
Well, you've come to the right place because that's what we're talking about today. We're going to be diving deep, beyond those melting clocks into the whole world of surrealism, which is where this painting comes from.
Yeah, because okay, I get it. I've seen it a bunch of times. Melting clocks, sure. But what does it mean? I know it's surreal, but how did we even get there?
Right. Well, for that, we need to set the stage a bit. It's the 1920s, post-World War I. The world's still kind of reeling from that whole experience.
Yeah, a lot of trauma going on, I imagine.
Definitely. And that's kind of where surrealism pops up. It's like the art world's response to all this absurdity and the old certainties are crumbling. And I think artists were kind of looking around and going, okay, if the world can be this crazy, then let's make art that reflects that inner chaos too.
So instead of pretty landscapes and, traditional portraits, we get melting clocks.
Well, it's a bit more nuanced than that. But yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Surrealism was also heavily influenced by Sigmund Freud. So there's a lot of interest in dreams, the subconscious, all that stuff bubbling beneath the surface of, normal thought.
Okay, so it's not just random weirdness.
Yeah.
There's a method to the madness, right?
Exactly. And I think that's where Dali's melting clocks come in. They're like a visual representation of how time feels in our dreams. It's stretchy, it's unpredictable,
Yeah, a little unsettling for sure.
And Dali had a name for his technique. He called it the paranoid critical method, where he would deliberately induce a state of paranoia to tap into those hidden thoughts and emotions.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying he was actually trying to make himself paranoid to get those ideas?
In a way, yes, it sounds crazy, but for Dali, it was a way to unlock his creativity.
Wow. So the melting clocks and the persistence of memory, they're not just random. They're symbols of how we experience time, subjectively warped by our perceptions and memories.
Exactly. He's playing with the idea that how we perceive time is as important as time itself.
That is deep. I'm going to need a minute to process that one.
And while you're processing, take a look at those ants swarming on the pocket watch.
Oh, yeah. Those are creepy.
They're not just a random detail. Dali used ants to symbolize decay, the impermanence of all things, even time that seemingly constant force eventually succumbs to decay.
Okay, mind officially blown. I'm starting to see what you mean about this painting being more than just melting clocks.
Right, and we haven't even gotten to Dali himself yet. The man was as eccentric as his paintings suggest, maybe even more so.
Okay, so give me the rundown. Who was Salvador Dalí, the man behind the mustache?
Oh, Dali was the ultimate showman. A master of self-promotion, that iconic mustache, the flamboyant personality. He was a character. But beyond the theatrics, he was an incredibly skilled artist.
So it wasn't all just an act. He actually had the talent to back it up.
Absolutely. His paranoid critical method wasn't just about shock value. It was a genuine attempt to tap into the subconscious and bring it to life on canvas.
So it's like he was trying to paint his dreams or maybe his nightmares?
That's a good way to put it. And if you look at the landscape in The Persistence of Memory, that barren, desolate setting, it's actually based on the coastline of Catalonia, Dali's home region.
So there's a personal connection there, too, a grounding in the real world, even though the painting is so surreal.
Exactly, and that's what makes Dali so fascinating. He blends the personal and the universal, the real and the imagined, in a way that's both unsettling and captivating.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all the pieces fit together. The dreamlike landscape, the melting clocks, the ants, even the distorted figure that's sometimes seen as a self-portrait. It's like Dali is creating a visual language for the subconscious.
You're getting it. And that's what we're going to explore further as we dive deeper into the persistence of memory and the world of surrealism. So stay tuned. We've got a lot more to uncover.
I'm ready for it. My mind is already bending in all sorts of interesting ways after this conversation.
That's the Dali effect for ya. He makes you question everything you thought you knew about reality.
I'm definitely feeling that, and I'm sure our listeners are too. So until next time, keep those brains melting, and we'll be back with more Surrealist adventures.
Sounds good to me. So before we really get into, all the symbols and the persistence of memory, there's a story about this painting. I just got to tell you, it involves cheese.
Okay, cheese and melting clocks. I'm listening.
Yeah, so Dali actually claimed that the whole idea for those melting clocks came from staring at a piece of camembert cheese, the kind that gets all runny and melty in the sun.
Wait, seriously, he looked at a hunk of cheese and thought, I'm going to paint that, but with clocks.
Yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous, right? But that's Dali for you, always blurring the lines between what's real and, what he just makes up.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be a Dalí story without a little bit of creative embellishment, shall we say.
Exactly. And, it does kind of fit with his whole persona, like saying, hey, inspiration can come from anywhere, even something as ordinary as a piece of cheese.
True, and that's kind of inspiring in a way, right? Like, look around you. You never know what might spark your next masterpiece. It could be anything.
Exactly. Keep your eyes open and your mind ready for those unexpected moments of inspiration.
Speaking of unexpected, let's talk about that weird figure in the painting. The one that kind of looks like a face melting into the landscape. Some people say it's a self-portrait.
Yeah, that's one of the most mysterious parts of the persistence of memory, for sure. And yeah, it's often interpreted as a self-portrait, but not a traditional one, obviously.
Yeah, it's more like a distorted reflection, like you're looking in a funhouse mirror or something.
Right. And that ties into Dali's fascination with the idea of identity being fluid, especially in dreams.
Yeah, I remember Freud and the subconscious, all that.
Exactly. He believed that our dreams reveal parts of ourselves that we might be hiding or not even be aware of when we're awake.
So that melting figure could be like a symbol of that, losing yourself in the dream world, merging with your subconscious.
It's like our ego is dissolving and we become something completely different in the dreamscape.
Whoa, that's a little scary, but also kind of cool.
Right. And those melting clocks, they add to that feeling of instability, too. Time becomes fluid and subjective in the dream world, just like our identity.
So it all comes back to that main idea of the painting, the persistence of memory, and how it shapes how we see time and reality, and even ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's all set within this empty landscape that feels both familiar and strange.
We talked about how it's based on the coastline of Catalonia, which makes it personal for Dalí, but it also works as this kind of universal symbol of a dreamscape.
Like a place where anything is possible, the rules of logic don't apply.
And the fact that there are no people in the painting makes it even weirder, right? Like
Yeah.
we're the only ones watching this whole bizarre scene unfold.
Yeah, that sense of isolation and unease is a big part of the painting's impact for sure. And the colors add to that too.
You mean those muted earthy tones, the browns and grays?
Exactly. They create this feeling of introspection, almost melancholy.
Hmm.
It's not a happy-go-lucky kind of dream. It's something deeper, more thoughtful.
So even though the painting is so strange and surreal,
Hmm.
there's a real emotional depth to it. It's not just about shock value. It's about making us feel something.
Exactly. And I think that's what sets Dali apart from some other surrealist artists. He wasn't just trying to be weird for the sake of it. He was genuinely interested in exploring what it means to be human, the inner workings of our minds.
And he did it by creating these amazing images that are both beautiful and unsettling and that we're still talking about today.
Right, he's inviting us to step inside his mind, to see the world through his eyes, even if that means confronting some uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the nature of reality.
That's powerful stuff. And I think we've covered a lot of ground here exploring the meaning and the emotional impact of the persistence of memory. But I'm curious to hear more about its legacy. How has this painting influenced art and pop culture, and what can we learn from it today?
Those are great questions, and I think those are the perfect segues into the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore the enduring impact of the persistence of memory and maybe even find some surprising connections to our own lives.
All right, so we've talked about the symbols, the history, even that whole cheese thing with the persistence of memory. But what I keep coming back to is, why is this painting still so famous? I mean, it's almost 100 years old and people are still obsessed with it.
I think it's because Dali really tapped into something universal. Those anxieties we all have about time and our subconscious. I mean, who hasn't felt that pressure of time slipping away or had a weird dream that just stuck with them? Dali gives those feelings a form, something we can actually see and think about.
And it's not just in art museums, right? I mean, you see those melting clocks everywhere on T-shirts, posters, even memes. It's like he predicted how images could go viral.
You're right. It's become this cultural icon, instantly recognizable, even if you don't
Mhm.
know anything about surrealism. It's like it's seeped into our collective understanding of how time can be this slippery, unreliable thing.
And it's funny because we're probably more obsessed with time now than ever before, with our smartphones and deadlines and the news cycle constantly churning. It's like Dali's painting is even more relevant now than it was back then.
It's true. It's like he anticipated this feeling of time speeding up and becoming this overwhelming force. And even that barren landscape with no people in it, it kind of reflects that isolation we can feel even when we're surrounded by technology and, connected to everyone all the time.
So it's not just a painting about the past, it's speaking to our present in a way that's kind of freaky when you think about it. But what about Dali's impact on other artists? Did he create a whole generation of melting clock copycats?
Right.
Well, not exactly copycats, but definitely a lot of artists have been inspired by his exploration of dreams and the subconscious. And that idea of bending reality. You can see it in everything from photography to installation art, art that plays with how we perceive things.
So he kind of opened up this new way of seeing, and artists are still exploring those possibilities.
Exactly. And it goes beyond the art world, too. I mean, think about movies like Inception or The Matrix, those films that mess with our sense of reality and what's real and what's not. They definitely have some Dalí DNA in them, the way they warp time and space and create those mind-bending visuals.
That's true. I never thought about it that way. But yeah, you can totally see the connections. Like he planted a seed that's grown into this whole forest of creative ideas.
And even if you're not an artist or a filmmaker, Dalí's work can inspire you to look at the world differently, to embrace the absurd and question everything, even find beauty in the unexpected.
I love that. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the persistence of memory, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from all this? What do you think Dalí would want us to remember?
I think you'd want us to stay curious. Never stop questioning the world around us. Look for those melting clocks in our own lives, those moments where time feels weird or logic takes a backseat. Embrace the surreal, even in the everyday.
I like that a lot. So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and maybe you'll find your own persistence of memory hiding in a piece of melted cheese or a strange dream you never know.
Exactly. Keep your eyes open and your minds flexible.
Thanks for joining us on this surreal adventure, and until next time, keep those brains melting.